The emergency lights flickered weakly as Ethan Cole lay motionless on the cold metal floor. His breathing was heavy, his head throbbing from the impact of being thrown out of the escape pod. The sound of distant alarms echoed through the abandoned alien station, reminding him that he was utterly alone. He forced himself to sit up, his fingers running over a deep cut on his forehead. His suit had absorbed most of the damage, but his body ached from the sudden betrayal. His own crew, people he trusted, had left him behind. Mission priority has changed, Ethan. We have no use for you anymore. That was the last thing Captain Reynolds had said before ejecting him onto this dying station. Ethan gritted his teeth and looked around. The station was massive but broken. Wires dangled from the ceiling like dead vines, and shattered glass from control panels covered the floor. The air smelled stale, and he could feel the temperature slowly dropping. "All right, Cole," he muttered to himself. "You're an engineer. Think." The first thing he checked was his oxygen supply. His helmet's display showed he had 6 hours left. After that, he would suffocate. He needed to find the station's life support system and reactivate it, if it still worked. Stumbling forward, he followed the dim emergency lights down a narrow corridor. The silence was unsettling. Every now and then, a loose cable sparked or a pipe groaned under pressure. The station wasn't just abandoned, it was dying. Then he saw something that made his stomach drop. A skeleton. No, something worse. A half-decayed alien corpse lay slumped against the wall. Its uniform was different from any species Ethan had seen before. Its 4 arms were curled inward, its mouth frozen in what looked like a silent scream. "What the hell happened here?" he whispered. He crouched down, inspecting the remains. The uniform had an emblem, a symbol that resembled a glowing eye with 3 lines running through it. Ethan had no idea what it meant, but one thing was clear. Whoever this alien was, they had died in fear. A sudden hiss made him jump. He turned sharply, his heart pounding. The sound came from deeper inside the station. Was it the ventilation system failing? Or was something else here with him? Shaking off the thought, he pressed forward. He had no weapon, no map, and no idea if the station's systems were even salvageable. But giving up wasn't an option. Finally, he found what he was looking for. A control panel near a rusted door marked with alien script. The buttons were cracked, the screen flickering. He wiped the dust away and pressed a few keys, hoping for a miracle. A deep mechanical hum filled the air. The lights flickered, then stabilized. Ethan's suit registered a slight improvement in oxygen levels. It wasn't much, but it meant the station still had power. "All right," he exhaled. "Step 1. Breathe. Step 2. Figure out how to not die." He opened the rusted door, stepping into what looked like a command center. Holographic screens flashed with alien symbols, most unreadable, but one caught his attention. A countdown timer, and it was running out. Ethan's stomach twisted as he stared at the numbers. 0:45:36. 45 minutes until. What? Before he could process it, a voice, cold and mechanical, spoke in an alien language over the speakers. Then, as if the station had understood his thoughts, the words translated into his helmet system. "Warning. Intruder detected. Security activation in progress." The station wasn't dead. It was waking up. Ethan's heart pounded as the station's mechanical voice echoed through the chamber. "Warning. Intruder detected. Security activation in progress." His eyes darted back to the flickering countdown timer. 0:45:36. He didn't know what would happen when the timer hit 0, but he wasn't planning to stick around and find out. The holographic screens around him shifted, displaying a rotating 3D model of the station. Red warning markers blinked across multiple sections, signaling system failures. Some areas had been completely locked down, while others showed partial power restoration, including the engineering sector. Ethan's instincts kicked in. If there was any place in this station where he could override the lockdown, it would be there. "All right, Cole. Move." He turned and sprinted back into the corridor, his boots clanking against the metal floor. The stale air was getting slightly better, meaning the life support systems were slowly recovering. Then the lights flickered again. A deep metallic clank echoed from somewhere down the hall, followed by a slow mechanical whir. Ethan froze. The station wasn't just turning on its systems, it was activating something else. A security drone emerged from a darkened corridor. It was Beichtel, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with 6 glowing red eyes scanning the area. Its body was covered in battle-worn plating, and its clawed hands looked more than capable of tearing him apart. Ethan pressed himself against the wall, holding his breath. Maybe it hadn't seen him yet. A laser scanned his body from head to toe. A cold mechanical voice spoke. Unauthorized life form detected. Security measures engage. Oh hell. The drone's arms unfolded, revealing twin energy cannons. With a sharp whine, they powered up. Ethan dove forward, narrowly avoiding a blast that scorched the wall behind him. Sparks showered the corridor as he hit the ground, rolling into a sprint. Not friendly. Definitely not friendly, he shouted to himself. The station's emergency lights cast long, eerie shadows as Ethan ran. The heavy thuds of the security drone's footsteps followed, gaining speed. He needed a plan. Up ahead, the corridor split into 2 paths, one leading to the engineering sector, the other deeper into the unknown parts of the station. Come on, think. Then he spotted it, a hanging power cable sparking from a damaged panel. A trap. As the drone closed in, Ethan grabbed the cable, yanked it loose, and threw it onto the metal floor, right in front of the charging drone. The moment the drone stepped onto the exposed wires, zaag, a surge of blue energy exploded across its body. The machine convulsed violently, its systems short-circuiting. Smoke poured from its joints as it staggered, trying to raise its weapons. But then it collapsed, twitching on the ground before going completely still. Ethan let out a breath, his heart hammering. I really hope the thing doesn't have friends. Not wasting another second, he sprinted toward the engineering sector, the countdown timer still flashing in his mind. Whatever was coming in 45 minutes, he had to stop it, or he wouldn't live to see what happened next. Ethan slid into the engineering bay, gasping for breath. The massive chamber was filled with towering workstations, robotic arms, and half-assembled machinery, all coated in a fine layer of dust. The station's systems had clearly been dormant for a long time, but now it was waking up. The control panels flickered to life as the emergency power surged through the room. Screens displayed strings of alien text alongside flashing red error messages. Despite not understanding the language, Ethan recognized the familiar signs of a system failure. Looks like I have my work cut out for me. He wiped the sweat from his forehead and moved toward the central terminal. A large circular console stood in the middle of the bay, its holographic interface slowly booting up. If there was any way to stop the station-wide lockdown, it would be here. A deep rumble vibrated through the walls. The station wasn't stable. Ethan's fingers flew across the console, navigating through layers of security protocols. The system was complex, far more advanced than anything he had worked on before, but he knew one thing. Every machine, no matter the species that built it, followed logic. He could crack this. Suddenly, the station's AI spoke again, its voice cold and mechanical. Unauthorized access detected. Lockdown reinforcement initiated. More alarms blared. The screen's interface glitched, then locked him out completely. A countdown started in the corner. 0:30:00. Ethan slammed his fist on the console. Damn it. Come on. Work with me. Then, something changed. The lights in the engineering bay flickered, but this time, they didn't return to their usual dim glow. Instead, a new holographic projection materialized in front of him, a map of the station, but with hidden pathways highlighted in blue. Ethan frowned. What the hell is this? The AI voice returned, but something about it sounded different. It wasn't as robotic, almost as if it was learning. System override detected. Protocol shift engage. Awaiting new administrator input. Ethan blinked. New administrator. Wait, you're asking me? He glanced back at the security feeds displayed on the side panels. More drones were activating across the station, but instead of hunting him, they halted, awaiting new orders. A grin spread across Ethan's face. All right, let's see what we can really do with this place. The station hadn't rejected him. It was giving him control. Ethan stared at the holographic map in front of him. The station had been rejecting him, fighting him at every step, until now. Awaiting new administrator input. The AI's words echoed in his mind. He wasn't just hacking into the system anymore. The station was accepting him. A slow grin formed on his face. Well then, let's get to work. The plan. The first step was stabilizing the station. The power grid was failing. The life support was running on backup reserves, and the structural integrity was at 46%. If he didn't fix these immediately, he wouldn't have a station left to control. Ethan pulled up the schematics. The station's core power generator was deep in the lower levels, but most of the maintenance tunnels leading there were damaged or sealed off. Looks like I'll have to make my own way down. Grabbing a portable repair kit, he set off, guided by the glowing blue markers on the holographic map. The descent. The corridors were dark and unstable. Panels flickered, and deep metallic groans echoed from the structure. Occasionally, strange clicking noises came from the vents, remnants of the alien infestation that had once threatened the station. Ethan didn't stop. He used his tools to cut through sealed bulkheads, reroute broken circuits, and even jury-rig support beams with scavenged metal. Every step forward repaired more of the station, and as the power slowly returned, so did the eye's presence. Structural integrity, 51% and rising. He smirked. Good. Reactivating the core. After hours of crawling through maintenance shafts, Ethan finally reached the power core chamber. A massive cylinder of dark metal stood in the center, surrounded by flickering energy conduits. One look at the diagnostic panel told him everything. System status: critical failure. Reason: reactor coolant leak. Ethan ran his fingers through his messy hair. Of course it's a coolant issue. It's always a coolant issue. Grabbing a fusion welder, he patched up the cracks in the coolant pipes, then manually reset the reactor's fail-safes. The process took time, but as the last panel locked into place, the core hummed back to life. The station's lights flickered. Then, for the first time in what felt like forever, they stabilized into a steady blue glow. The AI's voice returned, stronger now. Primary power restored. Core systems operational. Ethan exhaled in relief. That's more like it. But before he could enjoy his success, a new alert flashed across the terminal. Incoming vessel DTCTED. Unauthorized boarding imminent. Ethan's grin faded. Looks like I'm about to get some uninvited guests. The station's lights had barely stabilized when the alert flashed again. Incoming vessel DTCTED. Unauthorized boarding imminent. Ethan's fingers tightened around the console. He quickly pulled up the security feed. A sleek, black alien warship was approaching the station. It wasn't a standard patrol ship. It was a mercenary vessel. So someone finally noticed I was still alive. Ethan had suspected that whoever abandoned this station wouldn't want it to fall into the wrong hands. And apparently, he was the wrong hands. The station's eye spoke, its voice now clearer. Warning. Hull breach expected in 12 minutes. Defensive systems offline. Ethan exhaled sharply. Great. No weapons, no shields, and a hostile boarding party incoming. This was bad. A desperate defense. Ethan didn't waste time. He quickly pulled up a map of the station. If he couldn't stop them at the airlock, he had to slow them down inside. He accessed the station's environmental controls and started sealing off key corridors. With a few commands, he turned narrow hallways into dead ends and rerouted power to lock down bulkheads. That should buy me some time. Next, he set up a makeshift defense. He scavenged plasma welders, coolant tanks, and spare power cells, anything that could be used as a trap. As the timer on the breach alert counted down, Ethan moved into position. The infiltration begins. A metallic crash echoed through the station as the enemy breached the airlock. Through the security feed, Ethan saw 3 alien soldiers in heavy armor step inside. They moved cautiously, weapons raised, their helmets glowing with red targeting sensors. One of them spoke in a deep, guttural voice. "Scan the area. The human is here somewhere." Ethan smirked. "Dan right, I am." He tapped a command into his console. Hiss. From the vents above, a blast of coolant sprayed down on the intruders, instantly freezing parts of their armor. One of them cursed and stumbled, their movements sluggish. That should slow you down. But the others adapted quickly. One of them switched to infrared vision and pointed straight at Ethan's position. Found him. Damn it. Running the gauntlet. Ethan sprinted down the hallway as plasma bolts exploded behind him. He ducked into a side passage, using his knowledge of the station's layout to stay ahead. The mercenaries followed, but as soon as they rounded a corner, boom! A power cell overloaded and exploded, sending 2 of them crashing into the walls. Ethan glanced back, breathing heavily. 2 down, 1 left. He kept running, making his way toward the station's engineering bay, the one place where he still had an advantage. The final standoff. The last alien soldier followed him inside, scanning the room with his weapon. "You're a clever one, human, but you can't hide forever." Ethan didn't reply. Instead, he activated the final trick up his sleeve. A hidden industrial magnet roared to life, yanking the enemy's weapon out of his hands and slamming him against the nearest metal wall. Ethan stepped forward, picking up the alien's fallen rifle. He aimed it directly at his trapped enemy. "Now, let's talk." The mercenary's eyes widened. For the first time, Ethan was in control. The alien soldier struggled against the powerful magnet, his armor sparking as he tried to move. His eyes, glowing faintly in the dim engineering bay, locked onto Ethan with hatred and fear. "You think you've won, human," the soldier growled. "More will come." Ethan smirked, adjusting his grip on the stolen rifle. "Yeah, then maybe I should send them a message." The soldier bared his teeth but didn't reply. Ethan could see doubt creeping in. The silence stretched until the station's AI chimed in. "Hostile vessel remains docked. No additional life signs detected." That was good. It meant these mercenaries weren't a full strike force, just a test. Someone had sent them to gauge the situation, to see if the station was truly abandoned. Ethan needed to turn this to his advantage. Negotiating from strength. Ethan lowered the rifle slightly, just enough to make it clear he was willing to talk, but not enough to make the alien think he had a chance. "Who sent you?" he asked. The alien hesitated, then let out a low snarl. "You wouldn't understand." Ethan rolled his eyes. "Try me." The soldier exhaled sharply before answering. "A faction within the council. They don't want anyone using this station." That made sense. If the wrong people got control of it, they could disrupt the balance of power in this region of space. "Well," Ethan said, "too bad for them. I've already started repairs." The alien's expression darkened. "You should leave before more come." Ethan laughed dryly. "Oh, I bet more are coming. But I'm not going anywhere." He leaned in slightly, his voice lowering. "Instead, you're going to help me." The unexpected alliance. The alien stared at him. Disbelief. Anger. Confusion. "Why would I help you?" Ethan smirked. "Because you are still alive, and I can keep it that way." He tapped a few buttons on the control panel. The magnetic lock holding the alien weakened, allowing him to move slightly. but not enough to be a threat. "You help me secure this station," Ethan continued, "and I'll let you walk out of here in one piece." "Refuse." "Well, let's just say I'm not feeling generous today." The alien's jaw clenched. Ethan could see the calculation happening behind those sharp eyes. He was forcing the mercenary into a choice, and neither option was great. The silence stretched. Then finally, the alien gave a slow nod. "Fine. But if you betray me, human." Ethan chuckled, deactivating the magnet. Yeah, you'll kill me. Get in line." Preparing for war. As the alien stumbled free, Ethan tossed him a small repair drone. "Start fixing the security grid. We need defenses up before more of your friends arrive." The alien hesitated, then took it. Reluctant. Uncertain. Ethan turned back to the console, his mind racing. This wasn't just about surviving anymore. Now he had a mercenary, an abandoned alien station, and a galactic faction hunting him down. This was a fight, and Ethan planned to win. The air in the station was thick with tension as the first wave of enemy ships entered the system. Their arrival on the scanners was ominous, their presence undeniable. Ethan had no illusions. This wasn't just about fixing the station anymore. It was about survival. With the alien mercenaries' reluctant help, the station's security systems were reactivated, but they were far from ready. The shields were weak, and the weapons barely functional. Ethan knew they had minutes, maybe hours, before the fleet outside attacked. "You think this will work?" the alien asked, his voice still laced with doubt, as he worked beside Ethan on the control panel. "I don't have much of a choice," Ethan replied, his hands moving quickly, fine-tuning the weapon systems. "If this doesn't work, we're all dead anyway." The alien's eyes narrowed. He didn't seem convinced. They both knew that while the station had once been a scientific marvel, it had fallen into disrepair. It wasn't meant to fight. The weapons were outdated, the shields too weak to handle even a basic attack. But it didn't matter. Ethan wasn't fighting for victory anymore. He was fighting for time. He glanced up at the alien. "Get the engines running. I'm going to need every second." The alien nodded, his face grim, and headed for the engine control room. Ethan turned back to the console, staring at the incoming fleet. A cold sweat ran down his spine. There were at least a dozen ships. Too many for just one human to fight. "Here we go," Ethan muttered under his breath. He pressed the button to activate the main weapons. The massive energy cannons on the station hummed to life, their glowing lights casting an eerie glow over the dark interior of the bay. The first few ships fired, and the station rocked. The weapons system fired back, but Ethan knew it wasn't enough. The alien fleet was much stronger, and the station's shields began to flicker under the assault. Come on," Ethan cursed under his breath, fingers flying over the controls. He was working faster than he ever had before, trying to push the systems to their limits. The station was old, but it wasn't out of tricks. As the enemy ships continued their relentless attack, Ethan gritted his teeth and made a decision. He wasn't just going to sit there and be a target. He was going to take the fight to them. He cut the power to the remaining defensive grids, rerouting it all to one final gambit. The station's main cannon. If this worked, it could give them a fighting chance. If not, the station would explode with all of them inside. Ethan's heart raced as he set the firing coordinates. He could already see the alien ships shifting, trying to adjust their strategy. The station was alive again, and they knew it. The mercenary's voice crackled over the comms. "We have incoming reinforcements. At least 30 more ships." Ethan clenched his jaw. 30 more. That was bad. Too bad. "Then we'll just have to make them regret it," Ethan said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around him. He activated the main cannon, and the station's entire hull rumbled under the force. A blinding beam of energy shot from the station, cutting through the incoming ships like a hot knife through butter. The first ship exploded in a fiery ball of debris, and the next few followed suit. But they didn't stop. The fleet regrouped, and more fire rained down on the station. Ethan gritted his teeth, sweat pouring down his face as he fought for every second of time he could get. He was buying himself a chance, and that was all that mattered. The alien soldiers, the mercenary, and even the whole council, they had underestimated humanity. They thought they could control Earth, manipulate it for their advantage. But in the end, it was the human spirit that they failed to understand. The will to fight, the will to survive. And Ethan was proof of that. "Hold on, just a little longer," Ethan muttered to himself. He felt the weight of the universe on his shoulders, but he refused to back down. With a final push, the cannon fired again, and the incoming fleet began to break apart. The sheer force of the cannon's blast was enough to dismantle their organized assault. But Ethan knew this wasn't over. More were coming, and more would follow. Ethan was tired, but he knew this fight would never be over. Not as long as he was breathing. The station wasn't just a home now. It was a symbol of defiance. The galaxy had underestimated humans before, and now they were paying for it. The battle wasn't over, but Ethan was still standing. And that was all that mattered.